Hey, my friend, this is Marco Robert. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Today, I want to talk to you about something that is pretty cool. And it's this thing that you guys always ask me about is, Marco, what is it? What is this Platonism thing, right? A lot of people talk about Plato. A lot of people talk about Aristotle. A lot of people talk about Socrates. And they always want to know, hey, who were those old Greek dudes? And why is it that they seem to be so important in the way that we do business today? Whoa, that is a really good question. So if you're watching this video and you've been wondering, what is this idea of Platonism? I'm going to go in depth right now and tell you how much Plato and Aristotle actually are still affecting the way you think today. They're still affecting your ability to create business results or not create business results. Bada bing, bada boom. All right. So who is Plato, right? Well, Plato, so you have to go back to, I think, the 4th century BC or the 3rd century BC or something like that. It's a long time ago. And Plato was the student of Socrates. And Plato, one of the best ways to understand him is one day he was gazing at the sky and he looked at the world and he understood that there was perfection out there that was unattainable by human beings, right? Because, he was a philosopher, but, he was also kind of an astronomer, and he was looking at the sky and he realized how perfect the celestial bodies were, kind of in correlation to one another. And he basically theorized that there is a world of perfection out there that is unattainable by human beings, right? And he created or adhered to the concept of mysticism, that there's a lot of stuff out there that we do not understand, okay? I mean, I'm by the way, I am massacring, okay, the whole Plato concept, but I just want you to understand the essence of Plato, the way I see it. Okay, I mean, obviously, if you study Plato, there's a lot more about Plato. But I think in the way that he affected the world the most is through this idea of mysticism. Right? Basically, what he says is human beings will never attain a level of significance in the universe that is, they always have to subjugate themselves to a greater power in the world. Okay? Now, I want you to understand that Plato showed up on this planet before Jesus Christ. So most of the teachings that we learn from most of the religions in the world actually are based on concepts that were elaborated by Plato. Okay? Where, there is this mystical big thing out there that has kind of control over us. And us as human beings have to confer authority to something that is greater than us, okay? That's kind of how most religions are organized. Now, whether this is true or not is not important for this discussion. What's important is that because of Plato, we have spent most of our lives subjugating ourselves to something that is greater than us. That is because of Plato. Now, Aristotle was actually Plato's student. And Aristotle actually had a different vision of life. The way Aristotle looked at things is a concept called empiricism, where he says, if it is true to me, it has got to be true, right? So if I can feel it, if I can smell it, if I can touch it, if I can hear it, if I can see it, if I can taste it, it has to be true to me, right? So, Aristotle was an empirist. His entire philosophy was based on empiricism. In other words, the idea that you can actually prove life to yourself. Okay, he's the one who said, "A is A." Right. In other words, there are evidence that things are what they are. Okay, I don't want to go in depth into this, but you're more than welcome to actually do your own research on this. But the concept that is very important from a business perspective is that Plato literally trained us to think that we have to subjugate ourselves to a greater authority. Aristotle said that you should never subjugate yourself unless it makes sense to you. Okay? Now, Here's what happened. I don't know if you've heard of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was actually the son of King Philip, and he was actually tutored from a very young age by Aristotle. Okay, so Aristotle, the philosopher, the Greek philosopher, was the tutor to Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great ended up conquering the known world. I think he died by the age of like 34 or something like that. And he had conquered the world. Okay, that's why today we still talk about Alexander the Great. I mean, his accomplishments I don't think his accomplishments have ever been equaled. Okay, so he was just an amazing, amazing human being. Well, when he died, his generals decided to divide his empire amongst them. And they immediately saw Aristotle as a threat. So they went back to Greece and ended up exiling Aristotle. So Aristotle ended up dying on an island in the middle of nowhere. And they basically burnt anything that Aristotle had ever created, right? So you have these two characters in history that kind of lived in the same time. Plato was a very, very colorful writer. You know, if you read Plato, he's a very colorful, he's a very agile writer. Okay, it's very pleasant to read Plato. Okay, he's very good at creating stories and analogies. Okay, so he's a very interesting writer. Aristotle was more of a de facto, you know, fact after fact writer, not that much of a great writer. So you need to understand that between those two. Aristotle was exiled, so most of what he ever wrote was actually destroyed. Plato was never exiled. Plato was a prolific writer, and he kept on writing and writing and writing. So throughout the ages, the writings and the theories and the philosophies of Plato's have been decimated throughout ages, right? Where Aristotle's philosophies almost disappeared until the Ottoman Empire came on way, way later, and they kind of rediscovered Aristotle, right? If it were not for the Ottoman Empire, we would not even know about Aristotle, okay? So what I'm trying to say is this. You have two kind of dueling philosophies. One says we are just insignificant beings in the greater scheme of things, and we need to confer authority onto other people, other bodies, other authorities. The other one, Aristotle says, no, we are full entity who actually, we are self-resilient, we are self-reliant, we are self-determined, and as such, however we understand the world, we have the right and the obligation to act in accordance to the way we see the world. This was almost disappeared from history. This is what has been prevailing. That is the reason why most human beings today, I refer to them as normal, average, ordinary people. They see themselves philosophically as less than. That's why they're willing to subjugate themselves to parents, to teachers, to authorities, to priests, to imam, to rabbis, to governments, to leaders, to, you know, most human beings are happy to subjugate themselves and to be subordinate to something greater because we have been trained philosophically to believe that we are nothing but the subordinate to something greater. But here's what you find. You'll find that outlier entrepreneurs, the people who completely dominate the world, they tend to adhere way more to an idea, philosophy of the world that is much more close to the way that Aristotle was actually thinking. Aristotle was much more about understanding your strengths, understanding your independence, assessing who you are, and making decisions in life based on who you are. Okay? So, at the end of the day, this is kind of what I'm trying to tell you, okay? There's two groups of human beings. You have normal, average, ordinary people who basically have normal, average, and ordinary results in life. And then you have outlier entrepreneurs, and they're the people who have extraordinary results in life. The people with extraordinary results, they tend to be influenced by Aristotle. The people who have normal results, they tend to be influenced by Plato. right? And you may not even be aware of this, but if you are a normal person and you've been striving to have extraordinary results, maybe it's time you actually break a book open and you start studying Aristotle. You know who was a great student of Aristotle as well? Nietzsche. So maybe you need to start looking into what Nietzsche had to say. You know who was a great student of Nietzsche and Aristotle? Ayn Rand. So those are some of the philosophers that you probably owe it to yourself to read into. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with everything that Ayn Rand ever written. I'm not actually saying that I agree with everything that Nietzsche has ever stated, or that I even adhere to everything that Aristotle was talking about. But I'm going to tell you something, that if you look at the people who are successful in this world, whether they have actually studied those philosophers or whether they simply have embodied those ideologies in their life, you can basically draw a line in most of the successful people in the world. And I'm not talking about the guy who makes $1 million a year. I'm talking about the people who rule the world. Most of them would be perceived as Aristotelian. They're people who actually adhere to the theories and the philosophies of Aristotle way more than Platonism. So there you go, guys. You have it there. This is Coach Marco Robert. I hope you enjoyed this kind of dissertation on history and philosophy. But at the end of the day, guys, the philosophies of the world end up affecting the way you think, and therefore it affects the way you act, and therefore it affects your results that you get in your life. If you haven't looked into this, you need to look into this. This is Coach Marco Robert. I hope you liked it. Please hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and make sure that you comment. This is a very controversial topic, massively controversial. I hope you can appreciate me bringing you this topic, and I hope you can actually appreciate having a debate or a conversation about this topic, okay? If you're a student of Plato, if you're a student of Aristotle, if you're a student of religions, if you're a student of sociology movements, please make sure that you actually comment below and let's have a conversation. This is Coach Marco Robert. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.
Guys, this is Coach Marco Robert. Remember, if you keep on doing what you've always done, you're going to keep on getting what you've always gotten. Click on the next videos and continue your education.